Bring Casey Joyner in. We'll talk a little bit about that game, the NFL, the NFC East, and Eagles-Giants. And, of course, Casey, ESPN.com NFL Insider, at KC Joyner TFS on Twitter, and every Thursday. And now Mondays on the Sports Bash 97.3 ESPN. So he'll have some more time over the weekend to figure some things out because, Casey, this could be a different game by Monday with some of the injuries. The Giants have 11 guys on that list, but none bigger than Odell Beckham Jr. How much of a different team would they be without Odell Beckham Jr.?
They'd be different. I'm not sure that they would be quite as different as you would think they would be if they lose Beckham, and here's why. He right now ranks 27th among wide receivers in vertical targets per game. A vertical target is a pass to throw 11 or more yards downfield when you're trying to stretch the defense a bit. And, I mean, he's 27th. He's only getting 3.5 vertical targets per game. Teams have taken away his over-the-top passes. They've not allowed him to get deep and such. So they're throwing vertical passes to other players, and they're doing other things with their offense besides going deep to him. So they would be hurt if they lost him, but I don't really think it'd be the crippling loss that it might seem unless it was combined with some other injuries.
Which they have as well, but it looks like Randall's going to play. They were down to the very last couple of receivers in that final drive the other night. What'd you see from Eli Manning so far this year, specifically, in a drive like that, where last year and the year before, it seemed like Manning's throwing the big pick in those spots, and now he's completing that pass in the back of the end zone?
He right now has a 0.5% rate in a metric I have called bad decision rate. It's a metric that measures how often a quarterback makes a mental error that leads to a turnover opportunity. You're not seeing a defender in the passing lane. You're forcing a pass in double coverage. You're making some sort of mistake. Eli's done that a lot in the past, obviously. But, I mean, 0.5% it's like the second best in the league. I mean, he's protecting the ball in ways that he didn't in past years. And I think he's willing in year two in this offense. I think he's more willing to say, okay, I'll take what the defense gives me, where I think in past years when he was in those vertically inclined offenses, he felt, I've got to go deep, I've got to take longer passes. Now he's willing to say, look, if you're going to give me an 8-yard pass, I'll take an 8-yard pass because our offense is built to take that.
You just mentioned something that I want to follow up on. Year two in the offense. Casey, when you're judging players and evaluating them, how long do you give them to start to feel comfortable in an offense, a new offense? When a guy changes coordinators, changes teams, Sam Bradford changing teams, how long do you say this guy should be comfortable by now?
You really want to give them, NFL personnel people will say they look at seasons in quarter lengths. 4 games. So you want to give them at least, a couple of quarters of a season to say before you're starting to make a judgment. But for somebody to really get integrated into an offense, it's almost like if you start a new job. How long does it take you to get used to your new job? I mean, some people say it only take you 90 days and things. I know I never felt really comfortable in the job until I'm there for at least a year. And I think the same thing applies in the NFL, that when you get a player going to a new team, he's got a new system or something along those lines, you've got a lot of things that you've got to adjust to. And, you're talking a whole different – remember, the Giants were running a vertical-based offense before, and now it's this West Coast offense that has vertical elements, but it's still more of a ball control offense. And it's not just a change of the terminology you're going to use. It's an entire change of for the Giants.
Casey Joyner over at ESPN.com in the Insider section says the Giants have emerged as the NFC East favorites. A lot of people, Casey, though, look at this game and think it's not a good matchup for New York.
Well, depending on how healthy they were. When I wrote the article, it looked like they would be a little healthier than they are. But I like the thing about the Giants, though, is that they've got a number of things. I mean, we've talked about Eli and how good he is and how he's doing, even like you mentioned on that last drive. He doesn't have all his personnel out there, and he's still going downfield and making plays, and they're not getting a lot out of Beckham. They've got terrific pass-catching backs. Their offensive line, pass blocking-wise, is doing a fantastic job this year, and they arguably have the best rush defense in the league. So it's not just one element for the Giants. There's a number of elements. Plus, they've got top 10 special teams, which on the flip side, Philadelphia is not doing well in that this year like they were last year. So you start adding all those elements together, and just like if things keep trending the way they are, I think the Giants are a team that's playing the best in this division.
Let's go over some of the reasons as well. And I agree with the injury situation. But even with the injuries, this is a team that doesn't rush the passer very well, New York. Their safety play is not great. Do you like Philadelphia's passing attack against this lack of pass rush?
Yeah, I do. I would hope that this is the game we always talk about Chip Kelly being a run-first coach, and he's going to try and lean down that part of the game. So that's not what you want to do in this matchup. You want to go after a Giants defense that's playing better. Their pass defense over the past few games has been they rank since week 3. They rank 8th in the league in vertical yards per attempt allowed, and 9th in total QBR in vertical passes. So they're stopping long passes now, although some of that might be the offenses they played. But, yeah, you want to test this secondary because the front seven for the Giants, even though San Francisco moved the ball some on the ground, the Giants have been fantastic against the run, and that's not where you want to go against this team.
And then, of course, Philadelphia struggles to run the ball. Is this a game where realistically they try to put this into Sam Bradford's hands, and saying, hey, this Giant team, they are taking away the run, but they are willing to give us, as you like to say, the downfield vertical plays. I would think that this is a game that they say, Sam Bradford, take some shots.
Yep, Sam Bradford takes some shots. If they want to get the running game going, get it going in space. I think if you try and punch the Giants in the mouth, that doesn't work so well. If you try and move them around and space them out and things and say use, Darren Sproles, you've got a guy in your backfield who could do that. If you use him in space, I think they could get a lot more production out of him. So, but I think this is a game where you say, Bradford, go ahead and take some chances, throw some of those downfield passes that you've been so successful at the past couple of games. Don't force the passes into coverage like you did against the Saints, but, generally speaking, yeah, we want you to take some shots.
Casey Joyner, ESPN.com, NFL Insider. He says the Giants are the favorite. One of the reasons is Eli Manning's ability to carry the offense under the circumstances, which is they don't have a lot of weapons right now due to injuries. What about their running game against Philadelphia? Philly gives up just, 3.8 yards per carry. They've been one of the best in the league. Cox wins the NFC Defensive Player of the Week. Logan might have been a candidate. He's played just as well. Their linebacking core is pretty deep. And, look, they're missing Kiko Alonso and Michael Kendrick, so they can only get better in that spot. Philly's defense match up well with New York.
Yeah, it match up well as far as the running game goes. If I'm the Giants, I definitely don't want to run the ball. The Giants, though, between Jennings and Vereen, they've got 2 pass-catching backs. Jennings was arguably the best pass-catching back in the NFL a couple years ago, and Vereen has been a terrific pass-catching back for years. So I think they're going to try and get their backs into the game by screen passes, wide routes, flare routes, things of that nature. Try and get them integrated that way. I don't think they're going to want to run the football much more than the Eagles are going to run on the football.
One of the reasons you like the Giants is those 2 pass-catching backs, but also you say one of the best pass-blocking offensive lines. Philly was very good at pressuring the quarterback last year, not quite as good this year, but they still have the ability to pressure, if not sack you. How do you like that matchup?
I think if I'm the Eagles, I'm trying to play, we always talk about Chip Kelly's defense trying to, A, rush the passer, or B, also ball hawk. If I'm the Eagles, I might try and see if I can get old school Eli to come out. I know I was just talking about Eli's great bad decision rates, but I think that if you try and bait him with some coverages and say, look, here's a deep downfield pass that you can take, and then you go try and make a pick off of it, I think if they did that, Eli might take those chances, especially if he's got Beckham out of the lineup and figures if I don't take this downfield shot here that they're giving me, I might not get another. So it's one of those things where if I'm the Eagles, I might not concentrate so much on the pass rush and say I'm hoping I can get bad Eli to show up.
Casey, I know another area that you put is arguably the best rush defense in the league. Now, a couple of weeks ago, the Redskins were one of the top rush defenses in the league, but you said that number was misleading. Is that not the case with New York? Because, correct me if I'm wrong, they were the worst rush defense in the league last year.
They were. It's surprising. Don't get me wrong. It took me a couple of weeks before I said this is a red-rated run defense. That's my top rating for run defenses. It took a little bit, but yeah, when you look at their metrics, it's not just. I mean, if you allow a low number of rushing yards per game, a lot of that times that can be game flow. You had a big lead, and the other team had to pass to catch up. But that's not the case with New York. They're allowing a low number of rushing yards per game. They're second in the league in yards allowed before they get to a first defensive contact, before a defender actually hits the running back or the ball carrier. So that's a good sign when you're getting to the running back that quickly. And they're first allowed in yards per rush, first in the league in yards allowed per rush. So they're not giving up a lot of yards even when you do run the ball. And like with the Redskins, it was a matter of, yeah, they weren't giving up many yards, but when you broke down the plays, they were actually giving up some big gainers when teams were trying to run the football. That's not the case for New York.
You mentioned the state of the NFC East. Let me ask you this question. I might have asked you on Monday, but obviously with some of the different things that go on throughout the course of the week, the Giants, to me, and I agree with you, it might be the steadiest team, maybe have the least amount of issues, but which team has a higher ceiling from now on, Philadelphia or New York? Who can continue to get much better than maybe they've showed so far?
I would say it's Philadelphia. I would say that because Eli's playing about as well as he can play right now. I think maybe there is room for improvement if Beckham gets better and he can get some vertical passing going. But I think Eli's playing about as well as you're going to expect him to play. But Bradford, we've seen different Bradford the past couple weeks, but this offense is passing up and still isn't quite where it could be. And if the Eagles' running game gets going even more, that opens up the passing game, does a lot of other things. So as far as an upside for a team, I think the Eagles have more upside if everything goes their way. They have more weaknesses, I think, than the Giants. They've got maybe a lower floor, but they definitely have a higher ceiling if everything goes their way.
Eagles-Giants, Monday Night Football, 97.3 ESPN coverage starts at 7:30. We'll dive a lot into this game throughout the next couple of days, but I do want to get your thoughts on the Dallas situation. They're making the quarterback change from Whedon to Castle. Any effect there? I mean, does that help them out at all, or is it just, hey, we got to try something different?
Since the start of the 2009 season, if you take all the quarterback numbers since then, in the last 6 years and change, only 4 qualifying quarterbacks have posted a lower yards per attempt number on vertical passes than Castle. Castle was a guy who, even when he was with New England and they had Randy Moss, when Randy Moss was Randy Moss, he was filling in for the injured Brady, his vertical numbers were not that good, and he had maybe the best vertical receiver in NFL history. So Castle's not going to solve their problems. He might not have decisions that Whedon made. Whedon's a guy who's forced, making a lot of errors, and Castle won't do that. But he's not going to solve their vertical passing woes. They're still going to be a dink-and-dunk team, and that offense needs something more out of its passing game.
Yeah, how about you mentioned Des Bryant, he could be back next week. I don't know if that's enough for them. To me, they're not going to be legitimately a factor until Romo gets back, Casey, and it might be too late by then.
Yeah, it might be. They got to hope that the NFC just keeps going on the pace it's going right now. But yeah, they need Romo back because he's everything to their offense. It's not. You don't have. It's amazing that a team that good in so many ways, a team that has such a great offensive line, they've got a lot of talent, has a backup quarterback situation that let's put it this way: if you look at the Eagles, Eagles fans look about Mark Sanchez. How much do you think the Cowboys would love to have a guy of Mark Sanchez's caliber in their backfield right now? They think it was great. So I think the Cowboys, if they don't get Romo back, if they can't find a way to win a couple of games while Romo's out, if they don't find a way to do that, I think by the time he gets back, it might be too late.
Yeah, and getting Bryant back obviously helps them, but their schedule's pretty tough coming up. Obviously, they've got some really tough games, including some division matchups here with the Giants and the Eagles, and I know they play Seattle somewhere in the mix there as well. So tough spot for Dallas. And then, of course, you look at Washington. Are they sneaky? Is that a team that we should keep our eye on, or you just not believe that they are ready, even in this bad division?
I like the long-term trend for Washington. I like the way they're building their team. They're building their offensive, defensive lines and such, and they're getting better in their secondary, although that's a relative term given how horrible they were. I don't think the pass defense is still that good. The run defense we talked about earlier is not as good as it should be. The running game really isn't getting going. And Kirk Cousins ranks 30th in total QBR on vertical passes. So they've got a lot of weaknesses. They're going to be better long-term, and I think they're probably going to give some teams a scare down the stretch, and they might, cause a couple NFC East teams a headache or two. But I don't think they're a team that's in contention this year.
How about, by the way, let's go back to Dallas real fast. How about them making possibly the change from Randall to Christine Michael? We've heard so much about Michael over the last couple of years, but the Seahawks gave up on him. He hasn't been able to get on the field here. Is this a boost to their offense?
He could be, but Dallas all the time seems to think they're going to bring in running backs and say, okay, you're going to be our bell cow. And I understand why you want to go with a bell cow back. There's benefits to it. But, they've tried this with a number of different people. Michael's not a bell cow, and I mean, they said Seattle said, hey, you're not going to be our guy, and look at what Rawls is doing up there. I mean, there was a spot for Michael to be that guy if he would have held up, but he couldn't, and I just don't. I think they're going to be, if they put him out there, he might give them a game where he gives them 20 carries and great. Look, this guy's the next big back, but his history says that he might get that 120 carry game, and then he's going to be out for a couple of games. So I don't think it's going to be a difference maker for over the long haul.
All right. Of course, a lot of other NFL news and notes happening. The Eagles and the Giants. Again, read that article over at ESPN.com. The Giants have emerged as NFC East favorites. Casey lists 10 reasons why he likes the Giants. And then, of course, this game on Sunday, you were watching Bradford kind of emerge or kind of grow, I guess. I don't know. 5 games in, it's really hard to discern who he is, I think, still, Casey. I mean, you watch a lot of tape, and you were a fan of him coming in here. A little bit disappointing early, but how about now? Is he growing into that role? Is he becoming more comfortable in this offense? I mean, what is it that you see with Sam Bradford now?
He's finally not making bad decisions. He was trying, I think, to do too much early on, and that led to him making some errors that he shouldn't have made. I mean, the interceptions against the Saints were it's tough calls. I mean, those aren't really open receivers. I don't call that a bad decision more than it is a risky pass, but it's I don't mind seeing a quarterback make those kinds of risky passes, and frankly, I'd rather see him make those passes than make bad decisions. Bradford's is starting to be what we thought he was going to be, because I think now he's trusting his offensive line more. He's in better sync with his receivers. I just think, we were talking about what the transition is for a quarterback, and there were a lot of things he had to transition to with, a lot of new players and even some rookies on offense and the offensive line changes. You're talking all those issues, and what we're seeing the last couple weeks, I think, is going to trend to what we're going to see in the future. So I'm good with where he's at right now, where he's going to be going.
Yeah, and I'll say this. I think after that game against the Packers, expectations were unrealistic in the preseason. I mean, to assume that anybody's going to come in and just go up and down the field at ease. He only played about 20 preseason snaps. There has to be some rust. And then the whole feeling of not only are you learning a new offense, Casey, you're learning new talent, what the receivers' intricacies are, what they're going to do. Are they going to go left? Are they going to go right? I think you're still seeing him trying to get on the same page as some of his receivers, who aren't all that talented, mediocre talent, not great elite talent.
Yeah, and he's got to get used to this offense, play calls receivers open in a different way than the offenses he's been used to in the past, I think. There's only so many ways you can play call receiver open. You really have to do that with this wide receiving core. You're going to, these are not guys who are going to tear the top off the defense. You're going to have to tear it off the top for them. So, but that's where he's now seeing that, okay, where are the opportunities for me to make these big plays that I couldn't make in the past and things. And as the running game gets better too, because the big thing, remember, Chip Kelly offense, it's a fast-paced running offense is what he wants to do. And the way they blocked against the Saints, it was the best run blocking they had all year long. And again, given it's the Saints, I realize it's a relative term, how have good blocking against them, but they block that way or continue to trend in that direction, okay, now we're going to be able to run the Eagles' offenses the way Chip Kelly wants it to be run, and then we're really going to see the real Sam Bradford.
Well, last week, it's interesting because I was going to actually wrote down on my little napkin here, pace. You say pace play a lot when it comes to Chip Kelly. A lot of people talk about the speed and the pace. Last week, did it seem like he pulled the foot off the gas a little bit, that, hey, we still want to play pace a little bit, but we want to slow it down and not get our guys, too frantic? It seemed like they were taking a little bit more of their time, but at the same time, we're kind of controlling the tempo of the game.
Yeah, it's the thing about the Kelly offense is, if you're running the pace off of things, there comes a time which you may want to take your foot off the gas or run a different pace of an offense and such. And I think that this is just a psychological read or a gut instinct read. I think it might be that maybe Bradford gets so fired up about wanting to make the plays that you do want to slow the pace of the game down a little bit and say, okay, calm down a second, and go ahead and make the plays you're supposed to make. Don't worry about running it so fast. Get it right first, maybe is what it is. Get it right before you try and run it fast. And I think he was trying to run it fast more than get it right, so maybe the idea of the Eagles was, look, we'll slow this down a little bit until you can get it right, and once you do that, then we'll put back on the gas. So I think it'll be a temporary change for them.
All right, we'll have more on this game Monday as the Eagles get ready to take on the New York Giants. Big game in the NFC East. The Giants could really pull themselves away from Philadelphia with a win. They'd be 4-2, and the Eagles would be 2-4, but 0-3 inside the division. So probably a much bigger spot, specifically because the game is at home for Philly. And Casey will be back on Monday to take a deeper look at this game and give us his thoughts on that one. You got the Falcons and the Saints tonight. I'm not all that sold on Atlanta yet. I mean, obviously, I think they're going to have a good record at the end of the year and probably make the playoffs. I think I said beforehand, I think this is one of those 13-3 teams that get knocked out in the first round.
I would probably agree with that assessment. They're going to need more. It really depends on who they drew in the playoffs, though, too. I mean, because if they get the right matchup, they can win. But I think if they go up against a powerhouse club, I think that you would find that this team's weaknesses, which are still there, are being masked right now. But the weaknesses they have, I think they would come to the fore. But they're run blocking better than anybody else in the league right now.
Well, you got the Saints on the other side, and we saw that they have all sorts of defensive problems. So if you can run block this week, you're probably going to see a big game on the ground from Freeman tonight. And then, of course, Julio Jones. The Eagles had guys open all over the field against that secondary. So we'll see if they're for real. They've had issues winning on the road, and New Orleans still a tough place to go, as Dallas saw a couple of weeks ago. Even a banged-up Dallas team, New Orleans pulled that game off in overtime. That's the Thursday night game tonight in the NFC South. Casey Joyner over at ESPN.com. Check out his piece on the Giants and why he likes them the best in the NFC East. We'll talk to you on Monday, pal.
Sounds great. Appreciate it.
Casey Joyner, everybody, on the Sports Bash 97.3.